Hello and welcome to the Orange County Taxpayers Association OCTax Talk. I'm Carolyn Kavecki, President and CEO of OCTax, and we are so pleased to have with us today the elected Auditor Controller for the County of Orange, Eric Woolery. So Eric, welcome.
Thank you for having me today.
We're pleased to have you here today. So you were elected in 2014.
Correct.
It's been a little over a year.
Right.
So tell us, what exactly does the Auditor Controller of Orange County do? What are your responsibilities?
First, I have to start. That is probably the most asked question I always get. What does the Auditor Controller do? Yeah. The Auditor Controller is the elected fiscal watchdog for the county. Our system of government in the United States is one where you have different branches of government. And county government being a microcosm of state government, you have kind of the same checks and balances. Okay. You have a board of supervisors, which takes on a legislative/executive kind of departments or branches of the government. So you have to have others that kind of balance that out, where you have the countywide elected, such as the sheriff, the DA, assessor. And the Auditor Controller does that internally more for the county by overseeing the books.
It's a lot of responsibility. So let's, on the auditing side first. So what kind of audits and what type of audits are your department doing, is your department doing on a regular basis?
Well, first, the history is after the county bankruptcy, the office lost the audit function. It was kind of taken away from the office. So even though the office held the title Auditor Controller, it was really just the controller.
Okay, because they felt that at that point it wasn't being done.
It wasn't being done. The watchdog function wasn't being done the way it needed to be done. So they pulled that out and it reported directly to the Board of Supervisors. Probably the biggest accomplishment of my first year is was reversing that.
Bringing it back in-house. Good.
Bringing it back in-house, because it was really set up as a temporary measure. The Auditor Controller being elected would not resign at that point, so therefore they had to do something to deal with the bankruptcy crisis, so they had to bifurcate the office. So now we have the office whole again. So now we have the complete check and balance. And I've spent the last few months kind of diving in there, getting the pieces of the office put back together. And one of the areas that I'm trying to do is make the auditing function more robust. Essentially, it was going through the normal audits, the cash, the kind of the day-to-day stuff. They really hadn't looked at any kind of like the 21st century issues that we deal with, like IT. Everything's done on computer now. The books, the payment, the procurement in the county, everything's done via computer. But what would happen is we would audit the process up to the computer. We would jump over what they call the box or the computer, and then we would audit the back end on what came out. Now we're changing the audit program so that we're auditing the whole process through the computer, so that we're also bringing that aspect to operations.
And you have then control over audit function over all of the departments, the district attorney, the sheriffs, the assessor, everything. You're our watchdog in that way.
By state law, any department that has funds within the county treasury are subject to audit by my office.
It's a big responsibility.
Yes, it is. And part of that is we do a risk assessment every year, which we're working on for the next fiscal year.
Okay, then on the controller side, you pay the bills.
Correct.
How does that work at the County of Orange? That's a lot of money. You're responsible for making sure
those. It's over $5.5 billion a year.
That all has to be done correctly and go to the right person. How does that work?
Well, it works just like any major corporation.
Okay.
We have the same issues of any big company or other government entity. We have a procurement. How do we make sure we get the best price for things? So, we have that process. I work very closely with the procurement office. We're actually working on a new process because they haven't updated that. So we're going to what we call e-procurement. Once again, bring in the efficiencies. But it also helps us get the best price for the taxpayer. For instance, under e-procurement, the idea, once the program kind of is launched, it would be kind of like going to eBay or Amazon. You go to Amazon, you want to buy a book, you put it in there, and all of a sudden 5 vendors come up on your screen. And you can look at the prices and say, wait, if I buy it here, it's $1 less than over here. I want to keep that $1 for something else, so let's go over here. So, that's the whole idea of the e-procurement, is to bring in more competition. The other part of the controller's office that we work with is internal control. By state law, I'm the person who creates the internal control. It's been delegated by the Board of Supervisors for the county.
So what does that mean, internal control?
Internal controls are the control structure. You know, how do you purchase something?
Oh, okay.
So you have a manual. Okay, step one, you know, we go out and get bids. Step two,
Gotcha.
a committee looks at it to ascertain which bid is responsible and the lowest. So, you know, you have processes.
Yeah.
Well, like anything, you got to update those processes. If you just put it out there and say, oh, this is a great process today, and never relook at it, well, 10 years from now, things change, technology changes, ways of doing business change. That's not efficient anymore, and it may actually cause problems instead of fixing or making sure you get the best of everything. Most of the internal controls, when I took office last year, hadn't been reviewed in over 12 years.
Okay.
That almost put it back to the turn of the century in 2000. So one of the things I'm doing in the controller side is we're methodically going through. I've already seen duplications of efforts. And that duplication of efforts saves time, money of staff. We can have them doing more you know, productive work instead of, you know, doing double work, you know, double counting, you know. And it also helps in another thing, and this is a big, when I had that 6 months between election and taking office, I was meeting with a lot of county staff, managers, and the problem in the procurement side kept coming up is we're losing a lot of vendors. Well, why are we losing those vendors? Well, the bills aren't getting paid on time. They're taking a long time. And also the procurement system is just with so much paperwork. And so what happens is we lose a lot of vendors, or the vendor has to calculate that cost into their bid, which means we're not getting the best price for the taxpayer. So that's why I really reached out to the procurement office and then working hand in hand to create this new e-procurement system. We want to be able to get more competition, better prices for the goods and services we need. And we also get more vendors. We can help. A lot of mom and pop businesses are affected like that. And nothing against big businesses, but if we can use a competitive small business, we have a multiplier effect by putting that money back into the Orange County economy as opposed to it maybe going to a bigger business that's headquartered or, you know, located outside the county. So, you know, it's a win-win if we can keep our money closer to home.
Okay, so every year the county puts together something called the CAFR.
Correct.
And you've just done that. So talk to us. What actually is in a CAFR and what does Orange County's look like?
Okay. Well, I think the best picture's worth 1,000 words. So here is the CAFR. As you can see, it looks like a phone book.
There's probably a lot of numbers in there.
Yeah, a lot of numbers, a lot of statistics, management review. Also, what's interesting and people should really look at is the footnotes. There's a lot of good information on how the county does business and how they do their accounting. So it's usually a really good thing, not just to look at the schedules, but also to look at the footnotes.
So how does Orange County look this year in their CAFR financially?
Well, with the rebounding economy, things are looking a lot better than they have over the last few years with the recession. Property taxes are up about 4.9%, which is
good.
Yeah, it's great. It's the mainstay of our general fund revenue. A lot of things it's a $5.7 billion county.
Wow.
But the amount of money that is discretionary, that the board actually has a lot of discretion in spending, is about 600 million of general fund.
Wow, it's a small amount.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
The other good thing that happened this year is we had a couple of one-time revenue that hit. One was we have the Teeter Fund, which is our reserve for delinquent property taxes. By my staff being diligent, they looked into it and we were able to recalculate that reserve. We still have a good reserve there, but we're able to free up about $48 million in one-time revenues for the county. The other thing is state mandates. The state of California we do the work, they pay us 10, 15 years down the road. Well, they finally got caught up with the mandates through 2004, and that gave us about another $45 million in one-time money for this fiscal year, and they're going to pay the interest of about $11.5 million next fiscal year. So we'll have some good one-time monies there as well.
Okay, so the average taxpayer is not going to read a CAFR. They're not going to
Right.
understand what's in a CAFR.
Correct.
So we have another report that's a little bit better for a taxpayer, or hasn't been as good for the taxpayer in the past.
Well, and this was one of the things that I ran on during the election, and I wanted the information to go out to the public to be understandable. Something that the average person who's not heavy into accounting and finance could actually get some information
Right.
about their government on. That's why we created this, which is the Citizens Report.
great.
Now you'll notice it's not as big a
Right.
phone book. Actually, it's not much of a phone book. It's kind of small. And the whole idea here is to boil some very important issues that are in the big book into a way that the average taxpayer who doesn't have a lot of time to study this, or who doesn't have the financial background, can understand what's going on, or some of the major things that are going on within the finances of the county.
Because it is our money.
It is our money.
It is our money as taxpayers. So what's in the Citizens Report that an average taxpayer is going to want to know about this
Well,
year?
the big thing this year is the Gadsby 68.
Okay.
It's a change in how we do accounting for the pensions.
Okay.
And we did a few pages in here to talk about it. A lot of people talk about Social Security, which is completely bankrupt.
Yeah.
Well, our pension system at the county is actually in better shape,
Okay.
because if you look at the calculation which we put in here, the whole liability to the county is about $12.7 billion on the pension. Well, we also have about $8.8 billion in assets to pay down that,
Okay.
or to cover that. So we're actually better funded than Social Security at the county. But that leaves a $3.9 billion unfunded pension liability that is now, because of the new accounting program or rules, is on the balance sheet of the
And
county.
you actually show a comparison in this, right?
Correct.
That you show
Yeah.
pension and non-pension averages.
See, what right here, and this is one of the things I wanted to show a compare and contrast for those who work out in the private sector. Right here you have the calculation of an average county employee. All of the items that would be withheld from their paycheck. And over here we did the same exact pay rate. So you're comparing an apple to an apple with a private sector employee.
It's good.
And once you look at it, it's kind of interesting of where the costs are and where they aren't. I think some people will be surprised. There's some myths out there of what is really expensive and what is not really expensive, and the difference between the two.
One of the things I liked about the report that you did also was the service indicators. People want to know what their taxes are actually going for and what kind of services they're getting, and I think that was really good. We were very pleased to be able to work with you. I know you reached out to a lot of organizations.
Right. And we were really happy to have organizations like yourselves involved, because that's how we get that information. We can't see the forest for the trees all the time because we're in the forest.
Yeah.
It's good to have folks from the outside looking in, kind of saying, okay, there's a tree that we want to know more about in depth. So,
Good. It was our pleasure.
yeah, thank you.
So if you want to see a copy of the Citizens Report, we can go to your website,
Right.
and you can download it from your website. And I think
Correct.
you can also go to our website as well at octax.org and see that as well. So that's a good place to get a hold of it. Any improvements? What do you see in your future going forward now for your office? What do you want to do for the taxpayer?
Well, I want to keep on with a lot of the things that I've put in place. I talked about the internal controls hadn't been reviewed. I'm the first auditor controller ever elected from outside the county. Everybody else came up within the county. So I'm bringing kind of a new view to things to the county. And one of the things I want to do is a cultural shift. And that cultural shift is, a lot of people always see us as, oh, you're accountants, you're just processing payments, you're processing payroll. Well, I want us to be true taxpayer watchdogs, looking for problems. We don't always see problems, not everything's a problem, but I want people looking for them and kind of taking that up to the next level so that we can really look into fixing them. So what I've done was, you've heard of deputy sheriffs and all these other different, deputy district attorneys. Well, by state law, I can create deputy auditor controllers.
Okay.
In the past, that's been limited to a very small strata of staff at the upper level in my office. Well, what I did after taking office, about 6 months in, we had a big meeting with everybody together, and I deputized every employee in the office.
Okay.
And part of what I told them was, I'm deputizing this because I'm one person. We are an office of over 400 people. I need all 400 and something pairs of eyes looking at things and bringing that out and communicating it to us. Now, you can't just say that in one meeting and have everybody change. You know, it's a cultural thing. A lot of people have been working there 10, 20 years. So I have to keep on with that cultural change where people are more engaged and really looking at things with a little more critical eye. Not finding criticism in everything, but trying to find the constructive criticism to make things better.
Well, I think the county can be very pleased that we have a watchdog like you in this office. So thank you so much for being with us today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
We're thrilled to have you. And if you're interested in getting more information about where your taxes are actually going at the county, you can go to our website, OCTax.org, or our Facebook page, the Orange County Taxpayers Association, and get more information about that, OCTax events, Proposition 13, and membership opportunities. And with that, we will see you soon.